building companies with that intensity without taking a day off. And then you talk to VCs and investors and they tell you that being a VC is a high intensity job. You work very long hours. I mean, it's a joke, right? So you are traveling all the time. And when you are traveling, you could say, well, that is work, right? Because if you are not sleeping in your bed and you are going to dinners and you are going to parties, that is work. But that is a different type of job versus building a company that you are building, right? Like,
I think the thing that's so different about being an investor is you just don't have the same high highs and the low lows. Like if a company fails,
absolutely.
you're annoyed, but you've got portfolio. And if a company really kills it, like you're happy, but you've got portfolio. So like, it's like even 100x return in a 60 portfolio company is not going to it's not going to like change your life. Hey everyone, welcome to the Founders in Arms podcast with me, Imad Akan, co-founder and CEO of Mercury.
And I'm Raj Suri, co-founder of Lima and Tribe. And today we have with us an old friend of mine, Iñaki. I don't know if you remember, we met back in 2008 at MIT. We had dinner then, and now gone on to be a very successful entrepreneur. Had 3 exits under his belt. So Iñaki Berenguer, did I get that right?
Correct,
right. And so Iñaki's done a lot of things, so I'm just going to quickly read them out so we can... everyone knows some of the cool stuff he's done. So Iñaki is currently president and co-founder of Ipronics. We'll talk about that. And his first company was Pixable, which is sold to Singtel in 2012. Then he did Clink, which he sold to Thinking Phones in 2015. And then CoverWallet, which he sold to AON. How do you pronounce AON? Is it AON?
AON.
Okay. In 2019. So, Iñaki, you've had illustrious founder career outside Silicon Valley, right? You've been, mostly between Spain and New York the whole time.
Exactly. And by the way, you have forgotten the main occupation I have, that is partner at Flive Ventures, that is a $100 million fund investing at the intersection of AI and health. But
that's your side project, right? That's what you do on the side.
Yeah. That is my main occupation right now. But yeah, you're right. I'm from Spain, but I have spent about 20 plus years abroad, first for grad school, and then after graduating from MIT, moved to New York, and I was building technology companies there. And many of those companies in New York had offices in other locations like India, Spain, Portugal, or Buenos Aires, but they were always headquartered in New York.
Where are you based now?
So right now I have houses in Madrid and New York, and I split my time between the two places. When COVID happened, I only had a place in New York. And after selling the company, I bought a house in Madrid, and it's a way to go back to my country.
So this startup this venture fund invests in health and AI, but I don't think your startups were in health, right? So what got you interested in health and got you into kind of investing there?
Yeah, this is interesting. Actually, my companies have been in very different categories. Like the first one, Pixable, in social networks, mobile, and photos, very similar to Instagram 16 years ago. We raised money from Menlo Ventures, Highland Capital Partners, sold it to Singtel, Singapore Telecom in 2012. The second company was a SaaS company in the call center industry. We sold that company to Thinking Phones, that is a company in Boston. And my third company was an insurtech that we grew to about 100 million in premium revenues, 400 employees, mainly in New York, and we sold it to Aon for 300 million, all cash, all upfront in 4 years. And Ipronics is AI infrastructure for data centers. Again, like very different categories. The commonality is that they are all technology companies, product-driven companies, and all started at the beginning of a wave of innovation in those categories. Now, as you are saying, we are investing at the intersection of AI and health. We created the fund in 2012 with a very good friend from New York, Amol Sarva, serial entrepreneur, 2 unicorns, 1 IPO, building companies for 20 years. And we picked health because we thought that it was ripe for this disruption, thanks to technology and data. At the beginning of 2022, not many people were talking about AI. It was mainly technology and data. And actually what we have seen in the last 3 years is that is the hottest category when it comes to an industry being reinvented with artificial intelligence. It's not that we were experts in pharma, biotech, healthcare, doctors, or patients. Is that we knew that healthcare was becoming a data disciplines, zeros and ones, not only what you do in biology and chemistry in pharma, but also like what happens inside of a hospital or a clinic, or how a doctor works today. So yeah, we have been lucky to catch another wave of innovation in the same way that I was able to catch those waves of innovation in the past. We have been catching this one, but we don't consider ourselves like people experts in biology. We are experts in building technology products.
I think the variety of stuff you worked on, Iñaki, is very unique. A lot of entrepreneurs kind of stay in the same space, but I think Imad and I have both done multiple spaces, but you've done like 5 or 6, or I'm trying to count here. So, which has been maybe you can compare them. Like, what have you learned from like doing all these different spaces, like in terms of like product market fit and the different profiles of customer. When you go into a new space, what's your process of understanding how to be successful in that space?
So when it comes to like starting companies and building companies, I was lucky that the 3 of them were related to a personal pain point that I knew that could be solved with a new technology that didn't exist before. And if you are close to what is happening in technology, then you see problems on your day-to-day basis that can be solved with those technologies. Like the first one, Pixable. When I was at MIT in 2008, as you mentioned at the beginning, people were using different social networks like Flickr, Picasa, mainly Facebook at the time as well, but PhotoBucket, even video repositories like YouTube. And there was no central place where you could consume all that content in an organized way. Imagine like a feed of visual content. And in 2009, suddenly, the iPhone launched the App Store. If you remember well, the iPhone launched in 2007, but the App Store launched 2 years later. And then we were like, well, in the same way that people are sharing a lot of content or visual content in many places, why not to create a browser for all that content? And we launched this because even at a personal level, I had to be switching context, going from Flickr to Picasa to Facebook to YouTube. Twitter was helping people share photos as well. So it was solving a personal problem. My second company, the same, it was a caller ID for my, at that point I had an Android. So a lot of people were calling me, like you have been both CEOs of companies. And when you are listed as the CEO, you have like anyone calling you, like selling you things like professional services, legal services, furniture, real estate. And it was very frustrating not knowing who was calling me. And every time that I was seeing a 212 or 650, it was a very stressful moment. Should I pick it up or not? So we solved this with a caller ID solution where we were checking that telephone against a database that we had created with 1 billion telephone numbers. And almost in real time, we were telling you who was calling you. So basically solving a problem with a new technology that could be used on Android. My third company, again, it was an insurtech. And in my previous companies, I had to buy insurance for my company. And it was a very analog, opaque, and time-consuming problem. And I knew that small businesses like my own companies, we were already adopting a lot of online solutions to run like our operating system, to run like every function of the company, like payroll, insurance, invoicing. So I said, why not insurance as well, like a commercial insurance for my business, like liability, property, workers' comp. And I started this without knowing anything about insurance, but I knew that technology could simplify that personal problem I had. And I knew later on that this was a massive industry, 30 million small businesses in America. They all need to buy and manage insurance. It's a $100 billion market. And very quickly, we launched this and we got to 100 million in premium revenue. And actually now, 5 years after selling the business, I'm not involved with the business anymore, but it's closer to 2 billion in premium revenue. So it has been a very successful acquisition for Aon. But the commonality of all of them is like personal problems in an industry that is ripe for disruption thanks to technology.
Raj often says that some businesses are easier than others. Which one would you say was the easiest business to build?
It is interesting because if you think about Pixable, in the eyes of many people, it was very simple. Because actually, Pixable, when we sold the company, we had 40 employees, but we had $0 in revenue. We didn't have a sales organization. We didn't have like I don't know, like account executives, like sales representatives, like anything that you have when you have or you manage revenues. We didn't have any of that. So many people were telling me, well, that's a very easy business to be in, right? When you don't have revenues, you don't have to build a sales organization, a finance organization, like accounts, payables, accounts receivables. We didn't have any of that, but actually that was probably the most challenging business in terms of always on, because it was a free product. We had 12 million users logging in on a daily basis globally from Singapore, India, Europe, the US. So there were always problems on Saturdays, Sundays, midnight. And yeah, you had to be paying attention to what was happening. Compared to CoverWallet, we were only operating in the US, business hours. So on weekends, it was very unlikely that we had an emergency to deal with. So sometimes like the type of product that from the outside, they look very simple because it's like, yeah, dealing with photos, no revenues, and it's a very simple product to build. It's like Instagram. Like those are the most difficult one in terms of the amount of emergencies that you have to deal with after hours.
This is one of the funny benefits of Mercury, that in the US, payments don't work on the weekend. So, I mean, things sometimes don't go wrong, but there's not that much that can go wrong in the weekend because like money's not flowing anyway. Uh, how many years did you work on Pixable?
In Pixable, it was 3 years from starting the company to selling the company. Actually, all my companies have had very quick exits. That also meant that I was working nonstop. So Pixable was 3 years. CoverWallet was 4 years. Imagine 4 years, like building a company from 0 to 100 million in premium revenues, 0 to 400 employees, 0 to 30 million in equity raised, plus 30 million in debt. And that means that you are always building, and you are building very quickly, and you don't take a day off. You work every single weekend. So all companies in my case were very intense in terms of the amount of work and effort that we had to put into the company and the amount of hours I had to work. It's true that after selling CoverWallet in January 2020, my life has been much better, and now my life as an investor significantly better in terms of quality of life and work-life balance compared to my previous companies. Mm-hmm.
Do you recommend to founders that like, hey, sell early, take the exit after 4 years, or like do you have like some regrets where you're like, oh, maybe Pixable could have been, I don't know, Instagram or something if you'd like stuck with it?
I don't know about Pixable because it was one of those companies that was built to be acquired. Like when you build a company without revenues and you don't have any plans to have revenues in the short term, it was like, I don't know if you remember, like 2010, 2011, 2012, it was like the time of applications without revenues, but with a lot of user engagement. They were built to be acquired. We had offers to be acquired by Flipboard. We were in due diligence with Dropbox, with Facebook, with Google, and it was built to be acquired. So when the right offer is on the table, then you have to consider that seriously. With CoverWallet, it was a little bit different. The way we built CoverWallet, it was to be like going public at some point. When we sold 4 years after starting the company, our investors that were Unisquare Ventures, Index Ventures, Foundation Capital, Two Sigma Ventures, they were telling us, like, don't sell. Like, you are in a position to continue for a couple of years more, and probably you will be in the right position to go public, at least at $1 billion. And now you are selling for 300 million. It's true that at the time I was still the main shareholder of the company. So for me, it was a big life-changing event compared to Pixable. That was also like a meaningful exit, but not that of the size of being the main shareholder of a $300 million exit. And I mean, it was difficult. Like the investors were putting a lot of pressure on me not to sell. And when I started the company, I wanted the company to go public one day. Like when we started back in 2015 with a classmate from MIT, Rashmi. So we had an office in Wall Street in New York. It was a WeWork at 85 Broad. 85 Broad was the former headquarters of Goldman Sachs. It's a very well-known address if you work in finance, because Goldman Sachs had always been there until 15 years ago. So every time I was going to the office, I was biking with City Bike, and I would walk or bike in front of the New York Stock Exchange. And when you walk in front of the New York Stock Exchange, you see the flags of every company that goes public on that day, right? Like if you do your IPO, for example, HubSpot in 2014, 2015, then if you bike in front of the New York Stock Exchange, you see the big logo.
So it was like a motivational thing you saw every day.
Exactly, because those are people that you know, like Dharmesh, that probably like Rajat, you know him very well. He was a classmate at MIT who was doing his MBA at MIT in 2006 or 2007 that he was starting that company. And then suddenly 8 years or 9 years later, he goes public. Now it's a multi-billion-dollar company. And you are like, well, that guy is my friend. And we were having the same beginnings. So these things are a reality. They could happen. It's not that I have known this company when it was already successful. I met this founder and this company when they were still in a co-working space at Kendall Square at MIT. So you see those things happening. Like many of my friends, like, I don't know, Paul English from Kayak or Frederick Rest from Okta that Rajat knows very well. Fred is one of my best friends. I went to his wedding. He was starting the same way I was starting my companies. And you are like, well, this is a possibility. So you visualize that one day you can be in that position. So I was building CoverWallet to have an IPO one day because you think that that is the ultimate high of our entrepreneur.
So you wanted to do an IPO, your investors wanted you to stick. So why did you sell? Like, what changed your mind?
So at that point, we were going to raise another round at 220 million valuation. Someone put on the table 300 million. We had a discussion internally, and the rest of the team, we thought that it was a good offer to take. Actually, we were lucky because we sold, or we signed in November 2019, we sold in January 2020, and then COVID happened. If that had been delayed by 2 months, first, the transaction wouldn't have happened because everyone was in freeze mode at the beginning of COVID, and probably would have stayed in business for another 2 years. And you don't know what could have happened because in 2021, each of our competitors were raising a lot of money, like Next Insurance in Palo Alto, Vouch, probably, Vouch also raised a lot of money. But then during 4 years, nothing happened, right? So it was like a lot of ups and downs. And during those 5 years, or the last 5 years, I have been enjoying my life as an investor. So I don't know, like, no regrets of selling. It's true that I would have raised another 200, 300 million, but I don't know if I would have had a meaningful exit. And probably would have been very painful. So
it's a really tough dilemma. I mean, I saw a tweet from Jason Lemkin. You guys might know this guy from SaaStr, right? About these founders who had an offer to make 130 million personally 2 years ago, and didn't take it, to keep raising, and now they can't raise another round. They're stuck, and the trends change. You just don't know as an entrepreneur what could change. Capital markets can go away. Yeah, AI can come out. And
it's more challenging because product market fit with AI doesn't exist. It's not perpetual. Like when you have product market fit, you have product market fit today, but in 6 months, the market has changed because with AI, everything is changing. So product market fit, by definition, is for one particular market. You have a product that is a fit. But if the market keeps changing, then your product market fit keeps changing. And like OpenAI, Anthropic, all the companies are like launching new products that you thought that you had something, that you had some defensibility, and suddenly you don't have defensibility because OpenAI is offering that as part of the $20 plan or the $200 plan, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I think, these are really important decisions for entrepreneurs, and it's really hard to predict the future. I think it's like super hard to understand.
Brian Halligan, the other co-founder of HubSpot, just literally the other day tweeted that it's a good time to sell. So I think there's also like a timing thing, right? Like if you're an AI company right now, we are in a bubble, and potentially you're gonna what you were saying, like 2021 was a great time to sell, but like the exact same insurtech company 4 years later is probably worth the same or less, even though they've made like 4 years of like more work. So, that might be true in AI as well. Like even if you believe in AI, like at 4 years from now, maybe the valuations for some of these companies will be the same.
Yeah, and even the company that you have is like, for example, if I had to build CoverWallet again, an insurtech, I would have built it very differently in terms of people I would employ. Actually, I was very proud that I went from 0 to 30 employees in year 1, 210 year 2, 250 year 3, and then I sold in year 4. Now, like, I wouldn't talk about number of employees that they have, right? Actually, now you brag about that having very few employees, and then you try to like do every single function, like the call center, the support, the underwriting, like the marketing automation. Everything would be done by AI agents. And imagine that you had built all this organization thinking that you have something that is very unique, but then you realize that that is all technical debt or company debt, in the sense that like it's like you don't start with a blank canvas and you cannot reinvent yourself, right? So, yeah.
I'm a little suspicious of this idea that, like, in the future, there'll be so many billion-dollar companies that only have like a small number of people. Yeah, some people talk about like a billion-dollar company with only one person. Parker Conrad did a post and he said, like, in competitive markets, you'll end up like going and hiring marketing and sales, and like uh, like we're like in this temporary position where, like, yeah, it's similar to Instagram and Pixable and WhatsApp, where they had like tiny teams, but like they were still trying to work out like what that category even means. I don't know how big the Instagram and WhatsApp teams are now, but I'm guessing they're huge. So I feel like we're just in this temporary time where you can make a pretty big company with a small number of employees. I'm not like 100% sold like in the future, like AI is going to make it. I agree with your point that like you would be more AI native, but I don't think it's going to make it so like you'd have like a very small number of companies, because you like in a competitive market, you'll be competing against someone else that does go and hire like more people. And I guess unless we had AGI, that'll still matter probably.
Yeah. Yeah, although it is true that OpenAI, I don't know the number of employees that they have today. In July, they had 3,000 employees, and it is a $500 billion company in valuation, right? And it's not like a made-up valuation, right? If you think about multiples of revenues, like they have the revenues to justify.
But they were like
$500
1,000 employees a year ago. I mean, there's only so fast you can grow a company size, right?
billion.
Like, they're like 3xing per year. That's probably beyond the limit of what's a reasonable growth rate for a company. I mean, you said how fast you grew. I mean, Mercury grew like 40% in employee count for most of the years in the last like 7 years, and that's hard. I can't imagine growing like that much faster than 40%.
Yeah, no, even myself, like when I give talks and people ask me, how are you spending your time? I would say that 40% of my time was HR, and HR is mainly hiring, right? When you hire so many people, until I had 100 employees, I was interviewing every single person that was joining the company, either to interview the person or closing the person. And if you hire 100 people, you have interviewed probably 1,000 people, but not only like you spend time hiring people want to do one-on-ones with you. I mean, the reason why people join small teams or startups is because they feel or they think that they are going to have access to talk to the founder and the CEO. So you cannot hire people and then say goodbye. So everyone was telling you, hey, can we have a one-on-one once a quarter? But imagine you have 200 people and you have to have coffee chats with everyone at least 30 minutes. So hiring, like retention, those one-on-ones, like welcoming, like, so it was 40% of my time.
It does take up a lot of your time, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I did interview everyone until 180 people, and then eventually it was just like taking like so much time to interview people.
Yeah, no, this is why I'm super resistant at adding people in my companies right now, and very, very resistant. And it actually works pretty well. Like it's also a different mindset, right? I think I would have had this mindset regardless of the fashion, just because I've seen the costs of building large teams, and I see that people start, slipping through the cracks. You start seeing performance issues. You also see coordination costs go up. So I know that it's not glorious to build a team just for the sake of building it, right? And you really want to make sure. And also, it tends to be a one-way street. It's hard to take down the team once it's like built up, right? It's a painful decision. It starts start affecting real people. And having done that a couple of times, it's not a good thing. So be very resistant to building up large teams. I think is the right thing for entrepreneurs to do. But if you're forced to do it because of growth, that's a great reason. Like if you're like absolutely 100% objectively, and that's true. That still happens today with my team. So if it's for the right reasons, it still makes sense, but it absolutely doesn't make sense to boast about. I think, which entrepreneurs used to do. It used to be 10 years ago, the only thing you talked about is how big your team was, with other founders.
Well, it used to be kind of like, no one to talk about their revenue. I feel like it's kind of changed in the last year. Like companies are announcing, like, we reached this much in revenue, and all, like it's become a lot more about revenue. Which, again, with revenue, you could also cheat a little bit. Like, what's your margins? Like this much revenue, but like we're making a loss every time we sell a dollar. Is like one thing.
Or whether it is GMV, right? Sometimes like
Oh yeah.
in AI companies, it looks more like a GMV more than real revenue, right? But I mean, there is no like a standard way,
Why is it GMV instead of real revenue?
because basically you can like only like from every dollar that you have in revenue, you have a take rate, almost like a marketplace. So
Oh, that's interesting. I've never thought about it like that.
yeah, when you are using infrastructure and you have to pay
Yeah,
for
you're basically like
inference, and
your marketplace for compute. Like you're adding something on top of someone else's
exactly,
compute. Oh, that's kind of interesting way to think about it. So uh, how much would you think the take rate have to be before it is like if the take rate is like greater than 80%, maybe it's not GMV. But if it's like less than 10%, then it's GMV. Was that like a good way to think about it?
Probably like 10 or 20. Like people are talking about Mercor, right? That they publicized that they had 500 million revenues in less than 3 years.
Yeah, that's
But
right.
people say that is GMV, right? So they also have people that they are doing the labeling, and so yeah. So whether it is probably like less than 20%, then you should be considering that as GMV.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard from multiple people that Cursor is negative margins. So like, that's even more extreme.
Yeah.
Do you have any lessons from like selling, like in terms of like, if you're advising a founder on like, this is like the best way to either position your company or like, get an acquisition done? Is there like some lessons you took away from your experience?
Yeah, so well, many all the time. So one is that luck is a very important factor to have a successful exit.
What kind of luck?
Well, first of all, a due diligence of selling a company for more than 100 million is not going to be 1 or 2 months. It's going to be more likely between 3 months and 7 months. During that time, in big organizations that are the ones selling or buying the small companies, there could be changes in priorities, changes in management. In big companies, it's not that people quit their job and they go to another company, but there is a lot of reshuffling of executives. And when there is a new executive in that team that is going to acquire you, they say, oh, like I have to analyze everything again, and maybe the priorities change, or maybe there is a pause, or maybe whatever it is. But and that is a macro event in the sense that it doesn't you don't control. So if you are in the process of selling the company, it is always good to have an investment bank that is helping you manage the process, because it can accelerate when each of the milestones or the project management of that due diligence happens, because otherwise it's going to be like 6, 7, 8 months, and during that time anything can happen. So that is one lesson, right? Luck is very important and time is very important. The second thing is, like in my second company, Clink, that we sold to Thinking Funds in Boston. So we sold the company taking equity of the other company, common stock. And common stock, if you're an entrepreneur, you know that you go behind the preferred stock. That company ended up raising close to $1 billion, and they sold the company eventually for less than the preferred. So we didn't have any money, right? So common stock versus preferred stock, especially with companies that have raised the money, there's a big difference in how you are thinking about the valuation of your stock.
I mean, I think whenever you sell to another private company, it's so for stock, it's like such a big risk because you don't control that company; they can do anything.
Exactly, and they don't give you preferred; they give you common, right? Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe a little better if it's someone like Stripe and they've got like a big secondary liquid market.
Yeah. So it has to be like you have to think that they have raised less money than the valuation that they are at, no?
In these companies, when you were selling, did you go and hunt out the acquirer, or was this mostly inbound? Like people came to you, said like, "Hey, I want to buy this company."
Actually, like with CoverWallet, it was inbound, but it was an inbound with a partner. So it was an insurtech. So I always recommend people that if you want to build optionality for your company, it's good to do a strategic partnership with the potential acquirers. So at CoverWallet, we raised money from CV Star, that is a big insurance company in New York, Zurich Insurance Group, that is a big insurance conglomerate, and we had raised money from Aon as well. Aon is the second largest insurance conglomerate in the world, almost 100 billion in market cap, 120 countries in which they operate. So we had not only taken money from them, but we had signed a partnership with them. So we were working together in an initiative, so they got to know us. So that's also like very important when you are building a company. Building optionality, and building optionality means being close to your potential acquirers and getting to know them, because nobody's going to acquire you if they don't know how you operate and they only know like the founding team. In the end, if you're going to acquire a company, you are acquiring a large team and they all have to fit in how you work in a day-to-day basis. So it was inbound. It was inbound, yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes founders worry that like when they're trying to do a partnership, that the bigger company is going to copy them and like, let's like get under the hood and all of that stuff. Do you think that's like not a risk?
It is a very risky thing, actually, because many of these big corporates, they have an innovation team and they have to justify why they exist. And usually you partner with them via the innovation team. The innovation team is trying to learn as well what is under the hood. But that is the risk that you have to take, right? It's like not talking in public about what you are building. I think that with a startup, you cannot hide what you are doing, right? You have to be telling the world and be in the press, in conferences. You have to create momentum around you. And creating momentum is not only with conferences, PR, and media. It's also with your potential partners, potential acquirers, and potential competitors as well.
Iñaki, so now you're active investor, like you said, over 110 companies, deployed over 100 million, right?
No, well, 110 companies was as an angel investor. So the reason why I became a VC in 2022, 3 years ago, with Amol is because I had already been investing, like the two of you, but I had invested quite a lot of money, more than 20 million of personal money directly in startups. I come from a working class family, by the way. And I had invested in many funds as well, more than 10 million in, Kleiner, USV, and others. So Amol had been a very active investor as well, and we said, why don't we join forces and we create a fund? So we created a $100 million fund. I invested 10 million. Amol invested as well, and we raised money from personal friends. 100 million, we raised that in about 6 months, and we started investing, and we have about 60 companies in the portfolio. So in total, I have invested in close to 200 companies, either as an angel before creating the fund or now through the fund. And almost 200 companies.
Yeah, and you've had an interesting LinkedIn post where you talk about the difference in lifestyle between a VC and an entrepreneur. What's your perspective on this? I'm not sure if you read this one.
No, it's because at CoverWallet, they didn't take a single day off, right? It was true. It is true that it's only 4 years. It worked out well. And you look back and you feel proud of what you built. When you have been building companies with that intensity without taking a day off, and then you talk to VCs and investors and they tell you that being a VC is a high intensity job, you work very long hours. I mean, it's a joke, right? It's true that you do many things that are related to your job, because as a VC, you have to be traveling all the time. Like, that I spend my summers in Palo Alto. I rent a house there with my wife, with the kids, and like I go to events there. Then, like if I look at my last 12 months, I have been to Boston multiple times, to Middle East. I have been to Paris, to Germany, to LA, to Miami. So you are traveling all the time. And when you are traveling, you could say, well, that is work, right? Because if you are not sleeping in your bed and you are going to dinners and you are going to parties, that is work. But that is a different type of job versus building a company that you are building, right? Like being an investor is basically eating with friends, like having dinner with other people, like going to parties, going to workshops, going to conferences, going to offsites, going to Napa Valley, going to the Alps because you go with a group of entrepreneurs. So
I think, to be fair, it can be draining. I was talking to a VC who's like, I won't say who it is, but he said he had heard 13,000 pitches or something. This is like a 2-decade-long VC. And he's like, I cannot hear one more pitch ever again in my life. So he quit being like a VC, which I was like, okay, that does seem intense. But yeah, it's not the same
but
kind of
that is
intensity.
time. But it's just that it's amount of hours that you do things related to your job. Because you have to talk to people all the time and you have to listen to people all the time. But just being on in a meeting, listening to someone, giving your opinions and taking notes, that is very different from the stress of building something from scratch where there is nothing. Completely different level of stress, right?
I think the thing that's so different about being an investor is you just don't have the same high highs and the low lows. Like if a company fails,
Absolutely.
you're annoyed, but you've got portfolio. And if a company really kills it, like you're happy, but you've got portfolio. So like, it's like even 100x return in a 60 portfolio company is not going to it's not going to like change your life.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think that it has many benefits. Another one is that if you are an intellectual omnivore, I come from academia, right? I mentioned this, like I did my master and PhD at Cambridge. I studied at Columbia, Princeton, and MIT as well. If you are an intellectual omnivore, being an investor allows you to learn in perpetuity. And if you want to learn about crypto, you can spend 2 months learning about crypto. And if you want to learn about genomics and how AI is reinventing genomics, you can spend 2 months learning about it and talking to entrepreneurs that are educating you. So that is a big benefit. Another big benefit is the quality of life that you have in terms of the amount of pressure, not hours, but pressure. But nothing compares to the fulfillment of building something as an entrepreneur, building something from scratch, and celebrating that as a team, right? This is a team sport. I always give a lot of credit to the teams that have been working with me in all my companies. And like achieving something, building something, and an external party validating what you have built by paying a high price for that, that is very fulfilling, because that is not only like proud of what you have built from where there was nothing, but celebrating that as a team.
I actually have a hard time celebrating. I think it's like every time something good happens, it takes such a long time for it to happen that I've kind of moved on. And then like I always think about all the like, hey, this is all the stuff we have to do. Like it's maybe it's like, are you actually good at celebrating as an entrepreneur? Because I have never really like, even like we closed our Series C. I'm like, okay, this is what we have to do now. It's like I don't stop to like celebrate.
Well, when you have an exit, especially like, look, for example, tomorrow there are some drinks organized by some of the former CoverWallet employees, and this is 5 years ago, and still meet together, and there are like, they have Telegram or WhatsApp groups in which they still chat together, and then when they are interviewed, like out of the 400 people, there are like 30 or 40 of them that did very well, and now they are like successful entrepreneurs. Like, for example, my first CTO at Pixable, then he built a company after Pixable called Freshly in New York that got acquired for 1.5 billion by Nestle. It was a food delivery company. Many of the people that used to work for me now are successful entrepreneurs, like Michael Konialian. He built Modern Life. He quit CoverWallet and he raised 20 million the first month after exiting or leaving CoverWallet. Right? CoverWallet changed the lives of many of the people that were there, and that is what I'm referring to as like, you look back and it's like a celebration as a team. Right?
It has to be like a big, like almost like a one-way door type of like thing. Like, where, I think fundraising used to be celebrated like that. I think you're doing the right thing not to celebrate like that.
Yeah.
But like, some of your user milestones maybe could be like a big one, revenue milestones. But I remember we did we also rarely celebrated in Presto, and we did a big celebration where we landed like an 8-year contract with Chili's or something, some like massive, like over $100 million enterprise contract. That was one of the few like celebrations like I actually remember. And the team wanted to celebrate, this going public, via SPAC, and I didn't want to celebrate at all. So like I was like, no, this is a very risky thing we're doing, going public, and this is not. People normally celebrate that, but we were going public in 2022. It was a very dangerous time, and and I knew it was a long road ahead. So it was like, but people wanted to celebrate that, right? And that's something where I kind of pushed back against most of the investors and board. And I was like, no, this is not something we should be having a party for. But I generally think people should celebrate more. I was thinking about this. One of my startup ideas is related to this. Is like, I want more physical celebrations and more mementos from work, because work is like every day kind of feels the same, but like there are key moments that you could celebrate more. So for example, like in tennis, you were at the US Open, right, Iñaki? They celebrate by winning a trophy and they give a check and there's like a physical memento, and it's a 2-week effort that's celebrated with some pictures, that people can post, right? And at work, there are these moments. There's milestones that you hit, but there's no physical memento of it. and there's no pictures that you can take, and there's no place you can go to even celebrate. So like my idea was actually creating like a physical place in Silicon Valley where people would go to celebrate a key milestone, and it would be amazing like photography and videos, and like it would be all curated. It would be almost like the NASDAQ thing that they do in the New York thing. Yeah, but doing it from milestones in Silicon Valley. So, and you can kind of build a whole end-to-end experience and make it very social media friendly, and also have physical monuments to success as well. So, because otherwise, when you look back, it's not, you don't have that much, from what you worked on.
That is true, right? And it's true that when you have an IPO or when you have an exit, that is like a before and after, right? Because that has already happened. And I usually like my former employee used to refer to me as a paranoid optimist. And I was a paranoid optimist because I was an optimist because I was thinking that like we were going to be successful, but at the same time I was paranoid because I was like, well, in the same way that we can be successful because it is so clear to me that there is a big opportunity in front of me, there are going to be many people that also think that there is a big opportunity and maybe they are going to come after me and we're going to lose. And even if now we're doing well, like there are so many people watching us and going after us that maybe we fail one day. And this paranoia that like you are here at the top and at any moment you are going to lose everything that you have, that is always, it's a good thing to have as an entrepreneur, right? And being this paranoid optimist is like is the best definition about myself, but it's also like a good thing to have as an entrepreneur.
And Andrew Grove has a book, Only the Paranoid Survive, which I haven't read, but apparently the book is not that great, but the title is amazing. Have you read the book?
Well, I have read the book, but also Arnold Schwarzenegger used to say that when he was like lifting weights and being like, what is that, Mr. Universe? I don't remember, Mr. Olympia, that the way he, in his head, he was going to be the number one in the world is like, okay, I can be the number one, but whenever I'm watching TV, I have to think, or I think that there is at least one person somewhere in the world, maybe in China, maybe in Europe, maybe in the US, that at this point is exercising. And because there can be only one winner, like that was enough motivation for him to go back to training instead of watching TV. And you need to have that level of paranoia that there is someone at some point that is working harder than you and going faster than you. And even if they are behind you, they are going to catch you.
We've somehow gone through this whole podcast without talking about AI. So maybe one question on that before we do the quick fire. Iñaki, what do you think is like the most overhyped AI things right now, and what is the most underhyped AI things right now from your perspective? And maybe specific to healthcare, but maybe general.
Overhyped. Actually, I don't think that there is anything that is overhyped, right? But I know that many of the companies that are very big today, maybe in 2 years, they are irrelevant, right? Like many people are talking about Cursor that maybe like they were one of the fastest companies to get to 100 million. I think that now they are close to $1 billion in revenue, but maybe next year they have again like 100 million revenue, right? Because people are switching from one to the other and the switching cost is so low. So I'm not saying that it's overhyped. Actually, like I love Cursor and I would invest if I could invest in Cursor, but like these things can happen. Underhyped, I think that is, I don't know if the definition is underhyped, but it's the amount of impact that AI is going to have in healthcare, both in pharma, biotech, but also in healthcare, traditional healthcare. And we're already seeing that, so that is why I'm saying that it's not underhyped, because many of the new unicorns in 2025, more than 50% of them are AI applied to healthcare, like open evidence, functional health, Abridge, and many of those ones.
That's interesting. If you were going to do like I don't know if you have like a stack of like healthcare AI ideas that you want to fund or you want to start. Is there like one or two that you're like, hey, I wish someone would build this?
I can talk a lot about many companies that not enough people are talking about them, and they're growing like crazy in terms of revenue, like Function Health, for example. We are investors in Function Health. Like they went from 0 to 30 million in revenue in year one, from 30 million to 200 million in year two. They have raised a lot of money, but not many people are talking about them, or Abridge or Open Evidence. Open Evidence is a fantastic company. It's a Sequoia-backed company.
Is that the one where like 60% of doctors in the US are using it or something insane like that?
Exactly. It's ChatGPT trained with medical data, and it is a free product for doctors, and more than 50% of all the doctors in the US are using on a daily basis. It's a free product, of course. And 2 years ago, it was not in the market, right? Imagine that. It's true that the last valuation was $6 billion.
Did they have some sort of distribution hack? Like, how did they get to above 50%? Like, was it just like word of mouth?
I think it is free, right? Like the only thing that you have to do is like to update your certificate that you are a doctor. It is a free product that those doctors were already using ChatGPT, but ChatGPT was very bad for giving you references like citations of studies, right? It's like to treat this, should I do this or should I do that? Like Open Evidence is giving you the latest studies ranked based on like opinions of the community.
All right, shall we jump into the rapid fire round? This is we could probably go for another hour, but we should ask the last few.
I don't know why we
questions.
always book this for 45 minutes and always go for the hour. we should just admit to ourselves we're never going to stop at the 45. Yeah, let's go for it. You go first, Raj.
Actually, yeah, I'll ask her. This is not on the rapid fire list, but Iñaki, how would you compare, the entrepreneurial cultures of New York, Silicon Valley, and Europe? Because you're familiar with all three of them.
I think that, well, Silicon Valley is like unique. It's a unique place in the world because it has a monopoly of attracting talent that want to reinvent the world. I think that you don't see that in Europe or New York. Like you are not going to attract so much talent that are willing to sacrifice 4, 5, 6 years of their life to change the world and have an impact in the world. You can find a lot of talent in New York, you can find a lot of talent in Europe, but you're not going to attract the best of the best from all over the world to sacrifice like a significant period of their life and to go all in. So yeah, so that's the big difference.
That's an interesting way to put it. What would you say is the biggest mistake you've made in one of your companies?
Biggest mistake is not doing enough reference checks on people. Like, and sometimes even when you listen to feedback from other people that have worked with that candidate, you are like, yeah, but maybe like you were in a different setup or the context or something. But you have to listen to reference checks, and you have to do reference checks on people. Resumes or the CV doesn't speak about how people act under pressure and their integrity.
What's the best
team.
kind of question you ask to like really get at the heart of a reference check?
So integrity is important because in the end, I think you have to trust the people in your team. You cannot codify everything in a legal contract. So you have to trust people. And when I say people, is people that you work with, but also partners, also investors. So do reference calls with everyone that is going to be part of.
But how do you, like, what's the question you ask to figure out integrity in a reference check?
So yeah, it's like asking directly about integrity, how these people behave under pressure, under difficult situations. And like an easy way to ask questions about references are like, nobody's perfect in this world. I'm not perfect. You are not perfect. So I know a lot about the good things, but what do you think that is not perfect in this person, right? That's another question to ask.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But it's very important to do reference calls or reference checks.
What's some of the most uncomfortable pieces of feedback that you've received?
So I think that when people think that you're not going to make it, that is like putting a chip on your shoulder, and that is an extra motivation sometimes for you, right? And it's like, like when you go to a conference or a networking event and you are not the hot company out there and you are like, oh, like I want to be like in the next one, I'm going to prove them that I'm better than, I want to be the center of attention. So I was never motivated by money. I was motivated by winning and proving others that they could be as good as them. So I don't know, like when people tell you, like, I remember like in Pixable, we were going to raise money and there was an investor is like, you're not ready to raise money. It's like, no, we're ready to raise money, right? And then we raise money. But
it's funny,
it's someone challenging you.
It's often like you don't forget the people that say no. So, like some of these no's really stick with you. You're like, why did that person say no? I'm going to prove them wrong.
Exactly. And actually, that is a very, very good motivation factor. Like, what makes people be motivated to be hungry, to dedicate 5 years of their life to build something? Usually it's not money. It's like just proving to other people, like their parents or their friends, that they can win, right? And or people that didn't believe in you. I want to prove them that it's like having a chip on your shoulder. What makes you have that irrational motivation to go all in?
And that's why I think as an entrepreneur, when you're successful, because that's a different problem. I find I lose motivation when I'm successful, you have to always create new things and new reasons for people to doubt you. So, because otherwise it just gets too easy. You have to. I think that's why actually Zuck is constantly building crazy things. He's just he just wants people to say, oh, this is not going to work.
And that you still have that in you, right? You want to prove the world that you still have that stamina and that determination and that drive.
That's probably partly why Iñaki does different ideas in different spaces, because that's partly why I did Mercury, because I was I don't know anything about fintech, but I want to do something hard. I don't, doing something you understand is easier.
The same for CoverWallet. When I started this, people were like, but you don't understand. This is a very regulated industry. You don't have any experience. You think that it's just building a website. And then people were laughing at me, people from the industry. And in 2 years, I was on the cover of the main magazine of insurance that is called Career Management. In 3 years, I was invited to all the major conferences in the world about insurance and talking about the future of insurance. So I went from being a dummy that people were laughing at me to becoming like a visionary about the industries, right? And that was very fulfilling, right? But that was very motivational, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's probably one of the defining characteristics of an entrepreneurial personality, people who want to do hard things for the sake of it. I don't think that many people actually want to do hard things just to do hard things. I think most people want to have easy things. But yeah, maybe a good point to end on.
Yeah. Iñaki, this has been so much fun.
Thanks everyone for listening. Please leave us a review on whatever channel you're listening on. Makes a big difference to the algorithm and to the success of the show. And see you all next week.